doctor about Ingrezza.
I think I changed my mind about these glasses.
Yeah, it happens. That's why VisionWorks gives you 100 days to change your mind. It's simple. Anything else I can help you with?
Like what?
VisionWorks. See the difference.
Mr. President, did the administration, actually speaking of orders, violate Judge Boasberg's order in sending back the Venezuelan gang members and not bringing the plane back?
I don't know. You have to speak to the lawyers.
Are you planning to do more deportations?
I can tell you this: these were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres. That was a bad group. When you look at them and you look at the crimes that they've committed, you take a look. You don't get any tougher. You don't get worse than that.
That was President Trump defending its mass deportation policy after sending alleged gang members out of the country, despite a judge blocking their removal. These illegal immigrants are now in detentions in El Salvador, accused of being members of a violent gang. The Trump administration flying out 261 migrants, 137 of them via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. 101 of them removed via regular immigration proceedings. 21 were MS-13 gang members from El Salvador. Some of those removed are accused of kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, robbery, and aggravated assault of a police officer. The White House says those fights were already in the air and over international waters when the judge issued an order temporarily barring the deportations. NewsNation's Robert Sherman is live at the White House with the latest. Robert, the president invoked a law from the 1700s to remove these immigrants. Was this the right move?
Well, the White House seems to have the position that it was. And this morning, the president is pressing forward with his vow to secure the border and crack down on immigration. This is video from the president of El Salvador showing the arrival and deboarding of these flights there, in which he says 238 members of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang are now in their custody. But it didn't get to this point without some legal hurdles. The president invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to make the removals happen, an act that allows the president to remove non-citizen invaders from the country. But a D.C. federal judge temporarily blocked the move, appeared to verbally order any planes in the air to be turned around. The White House's position is that the planes were already gone and out of U.S. airspace, so the ruling was not applicable. The planes went ahead and landed in El Salvador. The president was asked about exercising the Alien Enemies Act, which has been seldom used throughout U.S. history and typically only in times of war. This was his response.
Well, this is a time of war because Biden allowed millions of people, many of them criminals, many of them at the highest level. They emptied jails out. Other nations emptied their jails into the United States. That's an invasion. And these are criminals, many, many criminals, murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion. They invaded our country.
President of El Salvador praising the move, writing, quote, "As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organized crime. But this time, we are also helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence to make our country an even safer place, all in a single action." And in a separate post in response to the news the judge had blocked the removals, the president of El Salvador wrote, "Too late." Nick?
Robert, where do things go from here?
Well, it seems very clear, Nick, that there intends to be some kind of legal challenge here. The ACLU was the one who filed this challenge with the federal courts already, and they contend that those who you saw on those planes did not get their proper due process. Of course, the White House pushes back on that and believes that they operated within the scope of the law. So there's disagreement over the legality of all of this. It stands to reason that there's going to be some kind of day in court, and both sides contend they're prepared to fight it when that day comes. Nick?
Robert Sherman with the very latest for us from the White House. Robert, thank you so much. Right now, you're looking at exclusive footage of one of the busiest areas for fentanyl seizures along the southern border. NewsNation was the only outlet to get a ride-along with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in Nogales, Arizona. She tells NewsNation that illegal border crossings have plummeted 95% overall compared to the last administration. The number of unaccompanied minors at the border is also declining. At its peak in December 2023, 4.6% of those crossings were unaccompanied children. That was under the Biden administration. In total, over 540,000 unaccompanied children crossed the border during those 4 years. But now they can only count 4.4% of crossings. That's more in line with what we've seen historically. NewsNation's Nichole Berlie got a firsthand look at the work being done to secure the southern border. She joins me live from Del Rio, Texas. Allie, you have been following these numbers from the very beginning. I have to believe for the agents who work the border, seeing a decline in the number of unaccompanied children alone is something that helps to give them a sense of peace and relief.
Yeah, hey, Nick, a dramatic drop there. As you can see, they're going all the way down to 0.4% in just the first a little over 2 weeks of this month on average. Now, when it comes to the conversation we were able to have with the DHS secretary, it's pretty extensive, but we did want to talk about that unaccompanied minors issue because a lot of Americans wanted to know what was going on with this, because we know that there are roughly 320,000 unaccompanied children who are essentially unaccounted for. Now, both DHS Secretary Noem and Border Czar Tom Homan has said they were going to go find them, go locate where those children are, because again, they could not be located once they were followed up with by the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Now, Tom Homan says in the past, 30% of families were found to be fraudulent under the Biden administration. That mandatory DNA testing requirement was removed. Secretary Noem says that is back.
We're putting in place policies and doing enforcement activities that are focusing on children. So as you know, we've already reinstituted the DNA testing, which helps us make sure that that child that's crossing the border, that it's really with a family member. If that child is being recycled and reused by cartels or traffickers, and helping us identify who they should be with. So we're doing that every single day. In fact, in some of our ICE operations, you know, you come into an apartment or somewhere that you're bringing in a gang or cartel member, we're making sure those children are really supposed to be in that home. And are they in a safe environment? So every day that work is being done.
Now, Nick, we were also able to talk to the secretary about the Alien Enemies Act. She maintains that that would be utilized to target Tren de Aragua members. Of course, a lot of those individuals were the ones that were removed to El Salvador. Now, I did ask her if that would be utilized in any capacity against protesters. She said she did not want to speak ahead of the president or speak for the president. Now, we also talked about the CBP Home app. That was a repurposed CBP One app, something that the secretary says is successful, that hundreds of people are using the app right now to self-deport. Now, her main message, though, was that agents are back on the line. They're able to do their job, and America is closed. Nick?
And agents are no longer under that constant barrage of so many hitting the border that was just simply overwhelming. Border officials say the crisis of unaccompanied minors, like we were talking about at the top of your piece, Ali, is also tied to cartels. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, really interesting there, right? Because we talked with former HSI Special Agent Victor Avila earlier this month, and he was saying a lot of these unaccompanied minors are coming over, and they're actually people that are trained up by the criminal cartels very early on. They start training them around 10 or 12 years old, and then these individuals come into our state with essentially a green light to walk in without really being vetted because they're unaccompanied minors. Take a listen to what the secretary had to say about that.
Many of these gang members that we have run into at times, people are shocked by how young they are. Mm-hmm. They may even be cartel members, but TDA members and MS-13 members that we're meeting that are 12, 13 years old, but they're conducting criminal activities here even though they're children. Yeah. Which also makes them less noticeable many times in communities until those crimes are committed.
They're exploiting that system, and it's kind of a green light to walk in because they're unaccompanied, right?
That's exactly right.
We'll follow up on that and continue that
That'd be great.
Now, data that we've obtained actually shows that 61% of the unaccompanied children who came into the country over the last 4 years are males, ages 14 to 17. Avila says many fabricate their age so that they can come in as a minor. The only way to really prove that they're lying is to run dental checks, which wasn't happening regularly under the Biden administration, according to sources. Now, Avila went on to say, Nick, that there needs to be more vetting there, and there also needs to be separate categories for unaccompanied children, those young-aged children, versus the juveniles, those 14 to 17-year-old kids. Nick?
Ali, once again, just highlighting how it's such a complicated process. And You've been on top of all of it. Allie Bradley, thank you so much. Don't forget, you can watch Allie Bradley's exclusive series on your YouTube page. And check out Bradley on the Border podcast, available on our website and the NewsNation app at newsnationnow.com. And joining me now, Ron Vitello, Senior Advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Mr. Vitello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. Help us break this down. We just heard Allie talk about these numbers and how border crossings are down. Is there a specific tactic or strategy you can point to that leads to such a dramatic drop in these illegal crossings?
Well, it's a leadership strategy. There's a commitment by the president, by folks like Tom Homan, the Secretary Noem, who you saw with our Border Patrol agents on the line yesterday. There's a commitment to securing the border and making America safe again. And that starts with securing the border in a way that prevents people from coming, right? So fortifying the border with our heroes from the Department of Defense, soldiers on the line, Mexico's commitment to keep smugglers at bay on their side of the border. And then that's led to a reduction of almost 100% of people that are stopped trying to come across the border, right? The encounters for the Border Patrol yesterday were 153. 75 of those people were prosecuted in federal court for their illegal entry or some other crime that they may have committed in their background. And so that message is being sent around the globe that if you try to cross the border, there are going to be consequences. And all the way up the chain of command to the Oval Office, people are committed to making this work.
And Mr. Vitello, I think those images are also powerful of seeing immigrants handcuffed and being deported, like Mr. Trump said that he would do. The Trump administration plans to hold illegal immigrants and gang members at Gitmo. Now, that didn't work. They were all flown back. ICE is saying some facilities reach capacity. Here's Secretary Noem, and let's chat on the other side.
They were returned to create some space. We'll continue to move people around, but absolutely we're going to use the asset that is Guantanamo Bay. We've got a lot of facilities there, a lot of capacity there, and we're going to continue to use it, especially for these individuals that are so dangerous. So, we have other opportunities as well for other locations. It's not always the wisest to telegraph every tool that we're going to be going after and utilizing, but Guantanamo Bay is a key to making sure that we have the detention facilities we need for these dangerous individuals.
Mr. Vitello, what's the next move here, and is Gitmo a feasible option?
Well, it's in all of the above strategy, right? ICE has just reported earlier today that they have record numbers of 287G agreements. That's with state and local law enforcement that allows them to work on ICE's behalf with the proper training to bring people who are illegally in the country who commit other crimes into ICE custody. So they have a full court press on obtaining additional space in detention centers. The military is assessing some of the assets that are already in play to upgrade them, to add to that. And Gitmo is on the table as well. It is probably the most famous detention center in all of the world. And so there are some specific capabilities that exist there that we're using for the worst of the worst, these trained Aragua gang members. And then there's additional capacity that's used on a day-to-day basis when people are apprehended at sea. They're brought into certain locations in Guantanamo Bay. So having the assets with local and state law enforcement helping, the men and women of ICE in the front line going out and finding the worst of the worst, and having the logistics and the capability on the back end to hold them safely. Aircraft being lent to us by the Department of Defense to remove people as quickly as possible. And as I said before, the Department of Justice is leaning in as well, making sure that those who continue to try to invade are being prosecuted for their criminal acts.
And I think those images are powerful, too, that if you are here illegally, they will find you. Ron Vitello, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All options are always on the table with the president, but Iran needs to hear him loud and clear.
Houthi rebels promising to escalate their attacks on American ships after President Trump goes all in on unleashing airstrikes on the insurgents in Yemen. The president saying we can do this as long as it takes. Plus, an all-time low for the Democrats' support dropping dramatically as some of the party's lawmakers majorly disappoint voters. Yeah, that's a fight, and it's not Madison Square Garden. What had these guys squaring up and boxing it out at the beach? straight ahead on NewsNation Live.
David takes Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's safe and effective, does not require a prescription, and I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really works so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen, for your brain.
If you have wet AMD, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. Some things should stand the test of time. Long-lasting EYLEA HD could significantly improve your vision. More people on EYLEA HD had no fluid in the retina compared to those on EYLEA at 4 months. EYLEA HD is the only wet AMD therapy that helped 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. If you have an eye infection, eye pain or redness, or allergies to EYLEA HD, don't use. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, or rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye. An increase in eye pressure has been seen. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke associated with blood clots. The most common side effects were blurred vision, cataract, corneal injury, and eye floaters. And there's still so much to see. If you are on EYLEA or a similar type of treatment, ask your retina specialist about EYLEA HD today for the potential for fewer injections.
Sounds like you need to vaporize that sore throat. Vapocool drops? It's sore throat relief with a rush of Vicks Vapors.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks Vapocool drops.
He's automatic from the 40.
You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.
He traveled.
You founded your kayak company because you love the ocean, not spreadsheets. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, candidates can find it easier, so you can hire easier. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
There's more to me than riding choppers. Grandpa. Just like there's more to Dish. Storms can't stop our shows. They switch to streaming like I switched to princess mode.
Friends for Dutch braids, Grandpa.
With Signal Protector, there's more to Dish. Switch today and get a $200 prepaid card.
Welcome back, 17 minutes after the hour. A new low for Democrats when it comes to how Americans view that party. According to a recent CNN poll this month, the Democratic Party's favorability rating stands at just 29%. In January 2021, when President Trump left office the first time, it was at 49%. That's a 20% drop. The poll was taken before 10 Senate Democrats, including Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, voted to advance the GOP spending bill on Friday, to the dismay of many progressives and especially House Democrats. I want to bring in NewsNation political contributor Chris Hahn, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, to help all Democrats stop pulling out their hair. Chris, I already know you're going to say, calm down, things can be okay. I want to thank you first for joining me this morning. Chris, where do Democrats go from here?
Look, nothing unifies Democrats more than an election, right? And if you look at those numbers, and I've looked at them, only 65% of Democrats are approving of Democrats, and therein lies why the Democratic popularity is so low, whereas Republicans are at 36%, with almost all of Republicans approving of Republicans. So there's Democrats tend to be a little bit more critical of their party. But look, here's what I think. I think Democrats need to focus on the economy, because I think what Donald Trump is doing right now to the economy is not helping anyone. And next month, people are going to start getting their first quarter 401k statements, and they're not going to be happy with what they see. And these results are not just because of some market fluctuation. The market is fluctuating because of what Donald Trump is doing. And Democrats need to bring that message home to voters. They also need to tell them that the cost of everyday goods are going up thanks to these tariffs. And once the voters feel that, and the Democrats have a plan to push back on that, that will bring people home to the Democratic Party. Look, I am not panicked at all. I think that the 2026 election is going to be a bloodbath for Republicans. I even think that the 2025 elections this year in both New Jersey and in Virginia, as well as locally, are going to be very difficult for incumbent Republicans.
And Chris, before we actually break down the poll numbers, because I know that you have a feeling on those two, I do want to get your take on Senator Schumer's yes vote.
Look, first of all, I worked for Chuck Schumer, and I will never say anything bad about the man. He is one of the greatest leaders in this country. He knows what he's doing. His name is on the door as the leader. He's got to do the responsible thing. And you can look at it both ways, right? If the government would have shut down, would Donald Trump ever opened it again? What would the Doge team have done during a government shutdown? Instead of tens of thousands of employees being laid off, maybe they would have just laid off 1 million employees and never brought them back. We don't really know. But I also think it's important to keep the focus on the chaos that the Trump administration is doing. If we got into a back and forth blame game on who shut down the government, that's not going to help Democrats either. So I understand the frustration of some people on the far left that are concerned that this might be a going along to get along. I don't think that's what it is right now. I think that the focus needs to be kept on the economic chaos and take it from there.
Chris, let's go ahead and jump into it there. Let's talk about the CNN poll numbers that I referenced earlier. What do you attribute to the big drop in favorability?
Like I said, Democrats are critical of their own more than Republicans ever would be, right? Democrats are looking at the party right now and saying, God, what are we doing? Why are we not pushing back harder? And like everybody else in America, people want to see results now. And I don't believe that Republicans are as critical of Republican leaders as Democrats are. I think that Republicans tend to fall in line. Democrats want to fall in love. And right now, the Democrats don't have anybody to fall in love with. Once that leader emerges, and Nick, I don't want to scare anybody, but we're probably about 15 months away from people announcing that they are running for president in 2028. And once that starts happening and the Democrats start focusing on that, and there could be a very strong slate of Democratic governors, people like Wes Moore, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, that are going to emerge as contenders for the Democratic Party, and they're going to speak the truth about what's going on. I think you're going to see Democrats come home. Those numbers will go up. And again, I think 2026 is going to be a good year for Democrats.
So, Chris, everybody can just take a Pepsi AC, calm down. Things are going to be okay?
Yeah, look, man, this hair didn't fall out today. It took years. Same with you, I'm sure, right? And there's a lot of maintenance to it. So it'll be okay. Look, one thing I know about politics is that there's a pendulum that always swings. It never stops. Anybody who thinks that the pendulum's going to stay in the Republican lane forever is wrong and has not studied history. The pendulum is constantly in motion. It peaked for Republicans last year. Now they've got to deliver on their promises, and they are not. So the pendulum is going to swing back.
Hey, waiting for that pendulum. A lot of Americans are wanting to see what happens next. Chris Hahn, thank you so much, sir.
Anytime, Nick.
Those Democrats now shifting their tactics to appeal to more conservatives. After the break, we're discussing their new strategy to court voters ahead of the midterms.
You're watching NewsNation, news for all Americans.
I'm always trying to learn about money and finances. The Experian app can help you build your credit, find new credit cards, car insurance, save time and money, and overall just help you gain more knowledge. So download the Experian app right now.
What should we do?
I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
Karen Reed is accused of hitting her boyfriend, a Boston police officer, with a car and leaving him to die in the snow.
The most famous case you've never heard of.
He was on the lawn of another police officer.
One of the women that was in the house that night Google searched how long to die in the cold.
Now the polarizing defendant,
Karen Reed, was framed.
Is ready to tell her story.
Did you drive your car into John?
A Body in the Snow, the trial of Karen Reed, an ID documentary event, tonight at 9.
Known for creating memories. No one wants to be known for cancer, but a treatment can be. Keytruda is known to treat cancer. FDA approved for 18 types of cancer, including certain early stage and advanced cancers. One of those cancers is a kind of bladder and urinary tract cancer called advanced urothelial cancer. Keytruda may be used with the medicine enfortumab vedotin in adults when your bladder or urinary tract cancer has spread or cannot be removed by surgery.
Keytruda can cause your immune system to attack healthy parts of your body during or after treatment. This may be severe and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you have cough, shortness of breath, chest pain, diarrhea, severe stomach pain, nausea or vomiting, headache, light sensitivity, eye problems, irregular heartbeat, extreme tiredness, constipation, dizziness or fainting, changes in appetite, thirst or urine, confusion, memory problems, persistent or severe muscle pain or weakness, muscle cramps, fever, rash, itching or flushing. There may be other side effects. Tell your doctor about all medical conditions, including immune or nervous system problems, such as Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, lupus, or myasthenia gravis, or Guillain-Barré syndrome, an organ, tissue, or stem cell transplant, or receive chest radiation. Keytruda can harm your unborn baby.
Keytruda is an immunotherapy and is also being studied in hundreds of clinical trials, exploring ways to treat even more types of cancer. It's true, Keytruda. See all the types of cancer Keytruda is known for at Keytruda.com and ask your doctor if Keytruda could be right for you.
The dentist will be right in.
Hey, I heard you're retiring soon. You excited?
Yeah, Doc, but there's so much to consider. Medicare, finances. Oh, and I lose my dental insurance.
You can get your own from Physicians Mutual. Easiest decision ever. It's real dental insurance that's real affordable. Well, I think my work here is done.
Wait, what?
Hey, I heard you're retiring soon. You excited?
Get the Premier Dental Plan from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company, one of the easiest retirement decisions you can make. For a free information kit, call now. It helps cover over 400 procedures. Everything from cleanings and fillings to crowns and dentures. See any dentist you want with no deductibles and no annual maximum.
Well, I think my work here is done.
Wait, what?
The Premier Plan from Physicians Mutual. Call or visit sendinfokit.com for all the details.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Welcome back, 27 minutes after the hour. The Middle East is on edge as Yemen's Houthi rebels threaten to ramp up their attacks on the U.S. following airstrikes from over the weekend. According to the Houthi-run health ministry, the strikes killing at least 53 people, including civilians. President Trump speaking from Air Force One, saying he's not worried about retaliation.
The airstrikes in Yemen, are you concerned about any retaliatory measures taken at all?
No, I'm not. Really, I'm not.
NewsNation's Tom Dempsey has the latest from Washington. Tom, what comes next for the Trump administration as they respond to this latest action?
Hey, Nick. Well, here's the thing. The White House team saying these strikes could be the first of many against Houthi military targets. In fact, President Donald Trump even calling on Iran to end its support of the terrorist group immediately. These first round of strikes, according to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, coming as a direct response to those threats against U.S. military and commercial vessels in the Red Sea. Take a listen.
I want to be very clear. This campaign is about freedom of navigation and restoring deterrence. The minute the Houthis say, we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting.
U.S. fighter jets struck numerous Houthi military targets across Yemen on Saturday, with people living in the country's capital describing what felt like an earthquake. In total, the health ministry run by the Houthis says at least 53 people died in the strikes. And National Security Advisor Michael Waltz added that the strikes took out Houthi leadership. This marked the biggest military operation in the Middle East since President Trump took office this year, and it came after the Houthis warned about resuming attacks on ships in the Red Sea. And more about that, the Houthis really began targeting U.S. military and commercial ships in the Red Sea to show support for Hamas after it invaded Israel in 2023. And since then, Nick, the White House team says over 300 attacks have been reported using missiles and drones. The Red Sea serves as a crucial route for trade between Europe and Asia, but the attack threats have led to a 60% drop in the number of ships passing through. In the announcement of these strikes, President Trump also warned Iran, which the U.S. has accused of providing money and weapons to the Houthis, saying, if Iran threatened the United States, quote, America will hold you fully accountable and we won't be nice about it. Now, Iran has denied any sort of involvement in those Houthi attacks on U.S. military vessels and commercial ships, but Houthi leadership responded to these strikes, saying that it plans to meet escalation with escalation. Nick?
Tom Dempsey with the very latest from our nation's capital. Tom, thank you so much. Defeated Democrats are now shifting their strategy with a focus on taking back Congress. The party planning what's being called people's town halls. events targeting House Republicans that are vulnerable in the 2026 midterms. I want to bring in Julia Manchester, national political reporter at The Hill, to talk more about this strategy of opposing the Trump administration. Julia, good afternoon. You know, we love talking to you about this because you help us break it all down. This move by Democrats is reminiscent of moves made by the Tea Party in the wake of the 2008 election. Do you think these town halls are going to be a focus for Democrats in the next few years, or something they just do to prepare for the midterm elections?
Well, it's certainly reminiscent, I think, from the images that came out of those 2008 Tea Party town halls, or excuse me, 2009, 2010 Tea Party town halls. But, you know, Democrats also say that they are trying to pinpoint what they argue could be a Republican weakness in these town halls. You'll remember a few weeks ago, there were a number of viral moments from House Republicans going into their districts, holding these town halls, and then getting a lot of visible vocal pushback from their constituents. Now, Republicans push back on this, essentially saying, look, these are Democratic activists, Democratic agitators. But House Democrats really looking to go on the offense here, travel to these districts and sort of meet Republicans where they are.
And Julia, you just talked about how many of them believe those town halls are a liability for Republicans because we've seen many of those viral moments, and many of those who are standing up to speak saying, no, I'm a registered Republican. I'm not a paid actor by Democrats. I'm upset about what you're doing to veterans like myself. We've seen some of these people speak to us directly. Now, the head of the House Republicans campaign arm has already actually encouraged House Republicans to avoid these town halls. Do you think Republicans should be avoiding their constituents?
Well, look, it's a very fine line because, of course, you know, from the Republican perspective, there is the risk that they could run into agitators or activists. But at the same time, town halls are a function of democracy. It is an opportunity for constituents who voted for or against these people who are representing them to come in and voice their concerns about what's happening in Washington. So, you know, going forward, I think it's going to probably depend on district to district how vulnerable, you know, House Republican is in this way. So it's, you know, I think they're probably going to have to make those decisions on their own or take the advice of the NRCC chairman. But it is certainly a tough spot that these Republicans are being put in. That being said, though, you know, these Republicans could very well, and we're already seeing this in the Senate and the House, push back against Democrats for voting against that continuing resolution that avoided a government shutdown. We are already seeing Republicans working to use that against them, and that's something they could bring to a town hall or, you know, use in their messaging, talk to constituents about. So it very much goes both ways.
And Julia, Democrats themselves are getting blowback over the continuing resolution because they're split on how that actually should have went down. I think today we just confirmed that Chuck Schumer is canceling his appearances centered on his book tour because he knows that many of his constituents are not happy with him right now.
Well, and this is where these two storylines sort of collide. Speaking of the town halls, you have Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez going to hold some of these town halls with Senator Bernie Sanders. And we know that AOC has been floated as a potential primary challenger to Schumer. Now, we don't know if she's going to do that, but clearly these camps are emerging. You're seeing Schumer, a number of these Democrats who voted for the CR, very much on the defensive. So as Democrats try to use this strategy of going on the offensive in these town halls, they also have to look back at their internal strategy, you know, where their party stands and, you know, how it could be divided going forward.
And there doesn't seem to be a singular voice for Democrats. Julia, such a shift under the leadership of, say, Hakeem Jeffries than we saw under Pelosi.
It is a shift, but at the same time, I think Hakeem Jeffries is in a very unique position, having Schumer, you know, going in a very different direction on this CR. But all I will say is Hakeem Jeffries, when he was asked about that on Friday and he said, next question, I think that speaks volumes.
It does indeed. Julia Manchester, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Birthright citizenship is now in the hands of the Supreme Court. Coming up, the Attorney General of South Carolina, one of the nearly 20 states against President Trump's order to end the practice, joins us live.
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about our honeymoon.
What about Africa? Safari.
Hot air balloon ride.
Swim with elephants.
Wait, can we afford a safari?
Great question. Like everything, takes a little planning.
Or put the money towards a down payment?
On a ranch.
In Montana?
With horses.
Let's take a look at those scenarios.
JP Morgan Wealth Management has advisors in Chase branches and tools like Wealth Plan to help keep you on track. When you're planning for it all, the answer is JP Morgan Wealth Management.
When our numbers guy Frank goes on vacation, the deals on the most affordable German-engineered car brand in America get even better. Hop in during Volkswagen Deal Days. The deals are in while Frank is out. Get up to a $2,500 customer bonus on select new 2025 models during Volkswagen Deal Days.
My mental health was better, but uncontrollable movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia, started disrupting my day.
TD felt embarrassing. I felt like disconnecting. I asked my doctor about treating my TD and learned about Ingrezza.
Ingrezza is clinically proven to treat TD, quickly reducing TD by greater than 5 times at 2 weeks. #1 prescribed Ingrezza has dosing that's always 1 pill once daily, and you can keep taking most mental health meds. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden behavior or mood changes, or suicidal thoughts. Don't take Ingrezza if allergic. Serious side effects may include allergic reactions like sudden, potentially fatal swelling and hives, sleepiness, the most common side effect, and heart rhythm problems. Know how Ingrezza affects you before operating a car or dangerous machinery. Report fever, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these might be life-threatening. Shaking, stiffness, drooling, and trouble with moving or balance may occur.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
Greg takes Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. 8 years ago, I just didn't feel like I was on my game. I started taking Prevagen, and I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me. I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years now, and it's still helping me tremendously.
Prevagen, for your brain.
Sometimes my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis gets in my way. But thanks to Skyrizi, I'm free to bare my skin. With Skyrizi, I saw dramatically clearer skin, and many people were 100% plaque-free. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is everything.
Now's the time. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Welcome back. 38 minutes after the hour. Just a few seconds ago, Border Czar Tom Homan spoke to reporters. He had a few things to say. We will get a couple of those sound bites together and share them with you in just a few minutes. But he is proud of the work that the administration is doing to round up migrants and get them out of the country. Meanwhile, the Department of Veterans Affairs addressing concerns about its collaborations with DOJ. NewsNation's Chris Direwalt spoke with VA Secretary Doug Collins, who detailed how he handles their recommendations.
The goal was set forth across government-wide. Very similar if you want to go back 30 years to when Clinton and Gore said we're going to have 12 to 13% of a cut in our federal government.
Reinventing government.
Reinventing government. So we're back at this. But here's an interesting part that I think people look at. When you take our goal of 15%, and this is across the government-wide, we're starting to look at it saying, okay, from the veteran perspective, VA perspective, we're going to have career VA employees, we're going to have senior executives, we're going to be looking at all of the areas that we have either duplicative, waste, or efficiencies to make sure we are able to put more money toward the very services you talked about, whether it be health care, benefits, those kind of things like that. This is never easy when you look at it because you have a lot of people that we really care about. They're doing a great job. My VA employees are wonderful folks. But also you've got to understand in the last 4 years, the previous administration spent tens of billions of dollars, over $100 billion, and added tens of thousands of employees, close to 50 to 60,000 employees, and yet our metrics for services and wait times went down. So maybe we need to ask better questions and saying, is it simply money and people that solve these these problems, or is it something else that we're organizationally need to look at?
Always a great discussion. You can watch Chris Starr while hosting The Hill Sunday mornings starting at 10, 9 Central, right here on News Nation. The fight on birthright citizenship now at the Supreme Court. The High Court Friday requesting responses from states and groups challenging the president's executive order. The move signaling justices will consider the Trump administration's request to lift the nationwide pause. Dozens of Democratic-led states and organizations are suing, arguing it's unconstitutional and would cause irreparable harms. On the other hand, 18 states are supporting the order that seeks to deny citizenship to any child born after February 19th whose parents are not in the country legally. It also prevents agencies from issuing documents or accepting state documents recognizing citizenship from them. South Carolina Attorney Alan Wilson among those defending the president's action, saying politicians have been too scared to address the abuse of birthright citizenship, but this executive order finally brings much needed clarity and enforcement to the issue. Here now, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Hey, thank you for having me on your program. It's great to be with you, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, I think everybody's a little bit Irish today there. You know, Mr. Wilson, I do want to talk to you, though, about this because you know that there are a lot of people who are divided on the issue. As this legal battle continues to unfold, you argue it's a crucial move to deter illegal immigration and birthright tourism. What is your office doing right now to prioritize the end of birthright citizenship?
Well, obviously, we joined this brief to the Supreme Court that you just talked about, and this is something that I've been looking at for many years. Obviously, 160 so years ago when they passed the 14th Amendment, that amendment was rightfully designed to bestow citizenship on emancipated slaves, which needed to happen, but it has been misinterpreted over the last 160 years to incentivize the ridiculous notion that somebody can come to the United States in the dead of night, drop a child like an anchor, like a boat drops an anchor, and all of a sudden they have been bestowed citizenship for henceforth evermore. That was not the intention of the framers of the 14th Amendment, but somehow as Americans, we have somehow gotten into this belief that this misapplied constitutional belief is somehow the way it was intended, and that's simply not the case. And so this executive order has created a vehicle for us to go to the Supreme Court to get clarity on this issue. And I understand it can be a very divisive issue, but think of the conduct that it is incentivizing and the type of problems it has created for America over the last several decades.
And Mr. Attorney General, I don't believe most people know that there are groups that actually provide tours for pregnant women to come to the United States and have a child.
No, you're absolutely right. And that is the very thing I'm talking about. I mean, imagine this. You know, imagine someone from China or someone associated with ISIS or Hezbollah or some non-government actor sneaks across the border in the dead of night with their spouse or with a female, and they drop a child, they have a baby here, then all of a sudden they are allowed to be here forever. Or let's say somebody is visiting the United States from France. They have a baby here in the United States, and then they return to France that following week, and then 60 years later, that child who is now 60 years old, do they get to now come back to the United States and they haven't even been here in 6 decades and act like they're a U.S. citizen? Again, it's a nonsensical argument that birthright citizenship should bestow upon people the same rights as people who were born here by people who were lawfully present.
And before I let you go, Mr. Attorney General, you do believe that the Supreme Court will weigh favorably in your favor?
I believe they will. I believe that they could. Obviously, you don't want to get in front of your skis, but I wouldn't be part of this movement if I didn't think there was a possibility that the Supreme Court would interpret the 14th Amendment in light of the tradition and the history in which it was written, which they're starting to do now when they evaluate the constitutionality of certain laws and constitutional provisions. I think they could rule in our favor, and I'm hopeful that they will.
And just to be clear, for those who would say, hey, you're taking draconian measures, this is really about making sure that the law is applied the way it was intended.
That is correct. It is always about the way that the framers of a law or of a constitutional amendment intended it to be applied, not the way that we want it to be applied. That is what those other groups are trying to do. They want the outcome. I'm saying let's just go to the original intent of the amendment.
Attorney General Alan Wilson, thank you so much for joining News Nation today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, sir. Moments ago, Border Czar Tom Homan, responding to allegations Mr. Trump defied a judge's order to send flights of immigrants to El Salvador. These illegal immigrants are now in detention there and accused of being members of violent migrant gangs.
The president, through proclamation, took his authority under Alien Enemies Act and imposed it, which he has a right to do. TDA has been designated terrorist organizations. TDA is an enemy of this country. We know TDA, based on a lot of evidence, are part of the Maduro regime through the military and law enforcement. They've infiltrated them, and look, they've invaded this country to unsettle this country, through whether it's through fentanyl killing thousands of Americans or through the violence they're perpetrating in our cities. The president did the right thing. I stand by it. I thought, and we removed in one day over 200 dangerous people, including MS-13. It was the right thing to do. And I see the video that President Bukele put out. It's a beautiful thing. These people are going to be held accountable.
That, of course, was Borders Our Tom Homan. The White House says the flights were already in the air and over international waters when the judge's ruling came down. Today, St. Patrick's Day, and many across the world are partaking in the festivities, from the dyeing of the river to green to parades and, of course, Chicago's best corned beef. We'll give you a taste of how Chi-Town celebrates after the break.
We just want to have enough money for retirement.
And travel to visit our grandchildren.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we start by getting to know each other so I can learn about your family, lifestyle, goals and needs, allowing us to tailor your portfolio.
What about commission-based products?
We don't sell those. We're a fiduciary obligated to act in your best interests.
So how do your management fees work?
We have a transparent fee structured so we do better when you do better. At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Nothing is more important than family. A family you're born into, a family you choose, or a family you make. I'm Padma Lakshmi. I came to this country when I was 4 years old with my mother. We came here because it was a land of opportunity. But for many, that's not the case.
Porque primero me separaron de mi mamá y de ahí de mi hermano.
Immigrant families are being separated. Black and brown families are torn apart by a broken legal system. LGBTQ people suffer discrimination in adoption and healthcare. The need to protect and defend the civil liberties we all hold dear is more urgent than ever, because families belong together. You can help by joining the American Civil Liberties Union today.
Call or go online now and become an ACLU Guardian of Liberty. All it takes is just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day.
The ACLU has fought to allow LGBTQ couples to marry, for racial justice, to stop family separation. We can't do this work without you. Together, we can defend our democracy, ensure liberty and justice for all, and keep families strong.
So please, call the ACLU now or go to myaclu.org. When you use your credit card, you'll receive this special member kit to show you're part of a movement to defend free speech, protect our civil liberties, and keep families together.
I hope you'll join me in supporting the ACLU today, because we, the people, means all of us.
Call or go online to myaclu.org to become a Guardian of Liberty today.
Happy to see you're out of the hospital and back at it.
Me too. But my big health scare got me really thinking about the future. With my girls set to take over the family business, I want to make sure I don't leave them any of my debts.
We're just happy to have you back, Dad.
That's why I made a call and found out I'm eligible for $50,000 for my funeral and other final expenses. There was no medical exam, and I was able to get coverage right over the phone.
I'm glad you made that call.
Call 800-918-2162 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation, and you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-918-2162. That's 800-918-2162.
40 people are now dead and 173,000 remain without power after a devastating storm system swept across the central and southern United States. Tornadoes, wildfires, and powerful winds tearing through communities over the weekend. On Sunday, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves signing a state of emergency.
It appears that the National Weather Service is looking at preliminary data, and we could have as many as 12 tornadoes that came through our state over the last 48 hours.
Fire threats remain for several parts of the U.S. Another storm system is expected to make its way across the country later this week. These storms may impact spring break for millions across the country. Hotspots in Florida now changing their tune, with Miami Beach leading the charge away from their party destination image. Known for its stunning beaches and vibrant nightlife, the city is one of the several in Florida that are now saying no more to the influx of college students on spring break. After decades of rowdy crowds, property damage, and public safety concerns, Miami became the unofficial spring break capital of the world back in the 1960s. And has attracted more than 50,000 students annually. Meanwhile, in Fort Lauderdale, chaotic video showing a boxing match between two spring breakers. The man recording the video saying bets were being placed on the match using cryptocurrency. We'll be right back.
We got the house! We did it! Don't worry about the driving with Pods. Pack at your pace, store your things until you're ready. Then we deliver to your new home, across town or across the country.
Pods, your personal moving and storage team.
With Allegra, you can stop being sneezy without feeling sleepy. Get 0% brain interference for fast, non-drowsy allergy relief with Allegra. It's a no-brainer. See Disney Snow White, March 21st. Rated PG.
Todd takes Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Todd. I'm a veteran of 23 years. I served 3 overseas tours. I love to give back to the community. I saw a Prevagen commercial and I did some research on it. I started taking Prevagen about 3 years ago. I've told my coworkers and family since taking Prevagen how much of a difference it's made in my life. I feel really good.
Prevagen, for your brain.
Scout is protected by Simparica Trio, and he's in it to win it. Simparica Trio is the first chew with triple protection. Oh, fleas and ticks. Intestinal worms. Whoa, heartworm disease. No problem with Simparica Trio. This drug class has been associated with neurologic adverse reactions, including seizures. Used with caution in dogs with a history of these disorders. For winning protection, go with Simparica Trio.
Look out, 'cause here I go. Have you always had trouble with your weight? Me too.
Discover the power of Wegovy.
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
And I'm keeping the weight off.
I'm reducing my risk.
Wegovy is the only weight management medicine proven to reduce risk of major cardiovascular events such as death, heart attack, or stroke in adults with known heart disease and obesity.
Don't use Wegovy with semaglutide or GLP-1 medicines or in children under 12. Don't take if you or your family had MTC, MEN2, or if allergic to it. Tell your provider if you plan to have surgery or a procedure, are breastfeeding, pregnant, or plan to be. Stop taking and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or any of these allergic reactions. Serious side effects may include pancreas inflammation and gallbladder or severe stomach problems. Call your prescriber if you have any of these symptoms. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines to treat diabetes. Call your prescriber about vision changes, if you feel your heart racing while at rest, or if you have mental changes. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Common side effects include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, stomach pain, flu or upset, headache, feeling tired, dizzy or bloated, gas, and heartburn. Some side effects lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
With Wegovy,
I'm losing weight.
I'm keeping it off.
And I'm lowering my CV risk.
Ask your prescriber about Wegovy.
You know that thing your family does? Yeah, that thing. Someone made it a thing way back in the day. But where did it come from? And how did it get all the way to you? Curious? Ancestry can help you find out with detailed DNA results and inspiring family history memberships. What are you waiting for? A sale? Well, lucky you.
Welcome back. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and celebrating can be fun no matter where you live, but some cities pull out all the stops. According to Wallet Hub, the top 10 best cities for St. Patrick's Day include Boston at #1, followed by Reno, and coming in at #6, the Windy City. And since NewsNation's home base is located in Chicago, you know I had to check out all the festivities, and that, of course, includes the corned beef and cabbage from the beloved institution, Manny's Deli. The bagpipes, Irish dancers, dying of the river, and of course, the food. If there's one thing Chicago knows how to do right, it's St. Patrick's Day. Hundreds of thousands of tourists will fly in from across the world to experience the city, festive parades, and all its green beauty. The celebrations kicked off Saturday morning as many lined up to watch a 60-year-old tradition. The Chicago Plumbers Union dumping about 40 pounds of environmentally friendly bright green dye into the Chicago River. But the river wasn't the only thing flowing this weekend. So were the drinks. An average of 13 million pints of Guinness are served on St. Patrick's Day worldwide, and this holiday's spending in general is expected to set a record predicted to top $7.2 billion. To make this happen, bars and restaurants are getting into the spirit by serving traditional food. And let's just say, when it comes to corned beef, Manny's Deli has had the luck of the Irish. This place has been around since 1942, so you know I have to get in here before the line gets crazy.
We're Chicago's best corned beef, maybe even the world's best corned beef. So people want to come here and get a taste of it and celebrate their Chicago St. Patrick's the right way.
Dan Raskin would know. He's the fourth-generation owner and operator of Manny's Deli, located in the near West Side community, which has been a St. Patrick's Day staple for many reasons.
Manny's is an institution mostly because of our employees and our customers. People have come generation after generation. Their tradition of coming here and getting their delicious corned beef sandwich.
That sandwich will be serving smiles to tourists and locals all day long today. But Manny's is prepped and ready for all the action.
We get super busy on St. Patrick's Day. We're going through well over 1,000 pounds of briskets a day. We'll have lines out the door, but we're ready to handle the crowds and make everybody happy.
Manny's Deli is proud to see Chicago wear Irish pride on its sleeve, and if you like meat, you're in for a real treat.
The big thing now is corned beef for St. Patrick's Day, but we do it many ways. We do our classic sandwiches, we do a Reuben sandwich, and then we also do the corned beef dinner.
The Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade is one of the largest in the United States, attracting more than 100,000 spectators. Dan says the morning of is a feeling unlike any other.
In the morning, we get our people who are always coming in for corned beef hash and eggs to start their St. Patrick's Day. And every single year, we see a lot of the same people. There's some floats that come here every single year. They come have their breakfast here, then they meet up with their team, and then they go to the parade every year.
Okay, Dan, you and I have done a lot of talking about this sandwich. I think it's time for the piece de resistance.
Let's do it. We have our famous Reuben sandwich. It's got our sauerkraut, which is our cabbage, Swiss cheese grilled, piled high with corned beef. We have our Thousand Island dressing, and of course, pickles on the side.
This is a big sandwich. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. First bite's always the same.
Brother, let's do it.
Let's go.
You know, I think you may be on to something. Yeah, and big thanks to Manny's for having us. Visit mannysdeli.com if you want to learn more. That does it for me. I'm Nick Smith. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep it right here. NewsNation Now is up next.
Nick, my stomach was already growling probably an hour before the show started. Now I just saw that. Certainly didn't help. Thanks a lot. Gonna have to make a stop at Manny's. Nick, thank you. NewsNation Now's next.